The peoples of Eberron are heavily defined by the aftermath of the war, but the mystery is how it ended.
So the last war sort of weaves together elements of the 100 Years' War, of World War I, of World War II, for us in terms of the touchstones it touches. On the one hand, it did last almost a century, so it's a long, crippling war that for most humans has been their entire lives. That generations of your family have fought in the war. At the same time, I say World War I because it is also a war that transformed the way we fight. That, you have, because magic is part of the world in Eberron, you have magic being used in war in ways it wasn't before. The creation of the Warforged, the creation of the airships, greater use of wands and sort of offensive arcane magic. And so it's just part of it is that idea that the world has changed. Beyond that, you also have just the literal scars physically of that long conflict. The mourning is the biggest example, and that's where you have a bit of the World War II. It has changed the relationship between nations, and again, we're afraid to go back to war until we understand it. But it's also created the Mournland, which is this vast magical wasteland right in the middle of the continent, which can essentially be seen as the world's biggest dungeon. You have sort of the ruins of an entire nation with all of its sort of treasures and heirlooms and things people just want to reclaim right there in the middle of everything. So in creating characters, one of the things we do in the Wayfinder's Guide is talk about that and talk about, depending where you're from, depending what kind of character you are and what you choose as your background, how did the war impact you? Did you fight in it? If you didn't fight in it, were you driven from your homeland? Did you lose family? Certainly, if you're from Syria, the nation that was destroyed, how has that affected you? Now you're again sort of, to me, it's a great way to start as an adventurer of saying, I'm a very talented person, I fought for my nation, and now my nation's gone. And, I have these skills, but I have nothing. So it's a great, I look to things like, for example, Firefly, this great sort of point of people who lost their war now just trying to find a place in the world. But there's lots of different ways you can explore, again, what you did in the war or why you didn't participate in it, the ongoing impact that it's had. And as a game master, you've got the mourning to work with, you have the tensions between the nations as they are continuing to, again, sort of prepare for the concept of conflict in the future, or to fight against it, to try and hold peace together. But then also the fact that the old balances of power have changed. That's one of the other big things about Eberron as a setting is in the sort of default, when you start, there's about 6 nations that have just emerged in the last 30 or 40 years. So you have a lot of places, including, coming back to one of my favorite things about Eberron, is sort of a very different approach to monsters. So we have a nation called Droam that is a nation that has been formed by what we commonly consider to be monsters. Ogres, trolls, medusas, it's run by a trio of hags who have gathered together all of these traditional monstrous creatures, but are making a nation, and it's not evil or something like that. It is just, what does it look like if these creatures come together and try and use their different talents and abilities to build a nation? And will people accept them? Or is there this general prejudice against a harpy? That can't be someone I'm going to take seriously.
Thank you again, Keith Baker, for talking about the world of Eberron. You can purchase the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron on dndbeyond.com by clicking on the link in this video description. I'm Todd Kenrick, your host. Thank you for watching.